He couldn't wish for a more meaningful work. In the past, he was a developer for a leading ad tech company, Media Math. There, he played a key role in launching an internal business intelligence platform to automate operations, billing, work assignment, and discrepancy analysis. He also hired, interviewed, and onboarded junior developers and started a monthly international Hack and Tell event, bridging the gap between executives and developers. So, without further delay, I'd like to introduce Pavan.
Hey, thanks so much, Greg. That was an amazing intro. Hey, can I get someone to introduce themselves as well? Anyone? You just have to unmute yourself, that's all. Hey, Christian, what's going on? Hey. Well, okay. So first off, I'm going to share my screen over here. And I am inside of this Gitter right now, right? So gitter.im/interview-weekly/hobby, and we're all there. So I've uploaded this file, this zip file, and that's what I'm going to be demoing right now. So what I'll do right now is I will go to the Sequelize website. I'm going to send this out in the Gitter. I'm going to unmute people right now. Let me see here. Great. Okay, I'll mute everyone again. 1 second, sorry. Okay, can anyone tell me what Sequelize is? You'll have to unmute yourself first. Let me see maybe someone's participating in chat. Can anyone tell me what Sequelize is?
It's an ORM?
You're right, it's an ORM. Thanks, Dan. And so an ORM is an object relational mapper. It's basically making it easier for you to manage your database through models. And now a lot of people say Sequelize. It's not really easy to understand. The documentation isn't really great. Why are we learning it? And the thing is, we're learning Sequelize because object relational mappers are popular. And Sequelize is one of the most robust ones for Node.js. And that's one of the main reasons why we use it. And we're learning it. Now, from experience, there are so many other object relational mappers out there that are easier than Sequelize. So rest assured that if you can do things with Sequelize, you probably can do anything with other object relational mappers out there. So we're primarily using Sequelize in our classes with what database? Can someone answer?
MySQL.
MySQL, that's right, Chinlong, thank you. So we use MySQL. So you have tables in MySQL, and you're mapping them to models in Sequelize. And models is what part of the MVC paradigm, right? So it's the database part. Now, what are the other parts of the MVC paradigm? Can someone else answer?
The views has the handlebars, right?
Yeah, exactly. Views has handlebars. It can also have HTML. And then what about the C? What does the C stand for?
Where all the routes go to, the main controller.
Exactly, right? All the routes and the code associated with those routes. In other frameworks, the routes are separated from the logic. There's like a routes file, and then there's like all the stuff inside of the route is put into another file. But here in Express, it's combined together. So what I'll do right now is I will open up this example application right here that you might have seen in your class, right? It's called chirping. And so I have a schema.sql file right here. Give me 1 second. Lost you guys. I have a schema.sql file right here. And does anyone know how we can run this schema.sql file? There's something we could do in our terminal to run it.
Sequelize, CLI.
Yeah, you could use a CLI. I'm right here in this specific example, I'm not using Sequelize at all. And then I'll show you the differences between this example and Sequelize. So over here, if I list all the files and folders, we see a schema.sql file right here, right? And if I run cat schema
You'll see it.
SQL and press enter, you can see the contents of this file. So I'll press enter right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that this file has this as the content inside of it. So what do we see here? We see create database chirpy, we say use chirpy, and we see create this table, chirps, right? And if you went into MySQL, right?
Hey guys, can y'all hear me?
I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
I just got on there, so I'm trying to follow along. I noticed that you're doing some MySQL stuff.
Yes, exactly. I'm using some MySQL stuff right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so basically, I'm in this folder, and it has a schema.sql file right here, and I want to run it. So if I go into MySQL right now, how can I run that schema.sql file? How can I execute all of the SQL inside of it? Can you answer me?
I would say run source and the schema.sql file.
Amazing. And what's your name?
My name is Limbert.
Limbert?
Limbert, Limbert.
Limbert, well, excellent answer, Limbert. I'm going to run source and schema.sql. Now, I already did this before, but if I run it again, it'll give me an error. Can't create this database because it already exists. But if you ran it for the first time, it would work. So now if I do Control L and clear my screen, clear won't work. Clear won't clear my screen. I have to do Control L, and then if I do show databases, it shows all my databases, and I can get into Chirpy. And how do I get into Chirpy? Someone else. How do I get into Chirpy?
Use Chirpy.
Use Chirpy, right? And I get in, the database changed, and now how can I show all my tables? Anyone else?
Show tables.
Show tables, awesome. Right, so now I'm gonna do select star from chirps. Nothing in there yet. And now what I'll do is I will run my server.js file, and with Express, the way I do it is I could do node server.js. I'm gonna do Control C, or I could run nodamon server.js, and that will watch for changes in my server.js file and restart my server automatically for me. Nodamon is an NPM package. It's an NPM package that I globally installed all over my computer. So that's a little trick right there. Anyone have any questions so far on what's going on? I'm not using Sequelize just yet because I want to show you an example application, and then we'll use Sequelize. All right, so I'm going to press enter right now, and it's running on port 8080. So I will open that up right now, localhost 8080. And we're here. So let's enter in a chirp. Test, submit. And right there. So I have one right there, and I'll enter one more. And we have that. And now if I open up,
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Where could I find the files that you're running there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just demonstrating the code, but you can look for it right here in gitter.im/interview-weekly.
I think I just
So if you,
found there.
yeah, if you go over there, you can find it. Let me chat that to everyone. That's where we'll be chatting, essentially.
Gotcha. Thanks for the files.
No problem. Yeah, absolutely. So all this is right there, including the node modules. So you don't even have to run npm install. So I'm there, and let's open up Chirpy. We see all this, and if I go into MySQL and I run select star from chirps, let's go to anyone else. Right? What's gonna pop up when I run this now?
All the rows and columns will pop up.
All the rows and columns will pop up, right? And the 2 chirps that I sent out are right here, right? And we see them over here. So if I just go into the code, right? We have a package.json file, and the name of it is express-library. All of these have to be lowercase. We have main is pointing to server.js. This is important for deployment. You need to point this to the file that you want to run when your application is deployed to Heroku. And I have my dependencies over here. And what is the importance of the dependencies? Anyone?
That way you don't have for example, if you're putting this up on GitHub and I pulled your repo down, or I cloned your code there, all I have to do is just run npm install, and it's going to install body passer, express in MySQL, so I don't have to manually type them, I would say.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's gonna allow people to pull down my code, and when they run npm install, they're gonna get the exact same packages, the exact same version numbers that I have, and we can work together harmoniously. Excellent. What's your name?
Limbert again.
Limbert again. Limbert with the save. Awesome. All right. So now we have a routes file, and if I open up the routes, right, we have this, and again, there's no Sequelize right now, but we'll get into it in a second. Just want to make sure we're all clear on basic Express stuff and MySQL stuff before we head into Sequelize. So I'm going to quickly bold all my comments here so it's a little easier to read. And we see this API/all, and we have this right here. And what this is it's a get request. And how is this a get request? Anyone other than Limbert? How do we know that this is a get request right here?
It's API.get that tells you.
Awesome, right? It's a get right here. This is get right here. It says get, so we know it's a get request. And because it's a get request, right? Get requests we can access from.
Oops, extra.
Yep. You see what happens right there? And we could see the JSON right here, right, from our browser. So that's what a get request is. So if I go back over here, in this get request, it's running this select star from chirps. So if I go back to my terminal right here, do Control L to clear my screen, and do select star from chirps, and I had that rogue L, but it doesn't matter. We see these are the chirps that's going to return, right? These are the chirps that's going to return. If I go back to my browser, these are the chirps. These are the same chirps right here. Test, 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 test. One more, and one more. Does anyone have any questions so far on what I just did?
I have a question.
Sure.
For, I guess, like the package. When we're installing globally, does it matter which directory you're in?
No, it does not. It does not matter what directory you're in. And are you installing Nodemon?
No, I don't have the Nodemon yet.
Okay, that's fine.
Within the folders. Yeah.
No worries. If you guys get a chance, you could do npm install -g Nodemon, and that would install Nodemon on your computer all over the place. And it does not matter what directory you're in when you're installing it, because it's being installed globally.
Okay.
Hey, Pavan, I have a quick question on your GET request. I was under the impression, maybe incorrectly, that GET requests didn't have a body. That is not correct, I'm seeing from what you're putting on.
So that was a really good question, and I hope everyone heard that question. He was under the impression that GET requests don't have a body, and then over here, when I hit it in the browser, it does have a body. Now it has a response, right? So don't think of it as a body. Think of things as like, okay, we sent a request to this to the server. We sent a request to the server. Our server's running on port 8080, and we sent it to we requested it with this route, API/all, and this API/all route happens to be a get, happens to be accessible via get, and so it responds with JSON, right? res.json result, and that's what's happening right here. I have a plugin inside of a Chrome extension. I believe it's called JSON View, and that's what allows me to see the JSON in this pretty manner.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see if I could Google JSON View. And yeah, it's right here. Let me send this out to everyone in the Gitter.
Because if you don't use that JSON view, it's just going to come back to you in like an ugly string, right?
Exactly. Yep. And let me see if I can get that ugliness onto my screen. 1 second. All right. Let's get all ugly right now.
Just disable it.
Yeah, there we go. Right?
Yeah.
Excellent. And yeah, this used to be beautiful back when Chrome was around. But now Chrome has changed the standard of beauty. I'm sorry if I'm getting nerdy, but all right, so right there. And then right now we're making a connection. We're using connection. This basically this variable up here, and our connection is in this connection.js file, and we're running the query property, which points to a function, and we pass in our database query. I mean, we could have just done this right here, right there. We could have just done that, but this is cleaner. So we just make it a variable, db query, and we pass this anonymous function as a parameter. And this function gets executed after the query is done. So this function gets executed after this query is done. And the function passes, like this is available. An error and a result is available to us. It's available to us because of the node packages we're using. Right? It's available to us because of the MySQL package that we're using. And we're doing res.json result, and we're passing this result. Any questions on this?
I guess you wouldn't have to put the error parameter or the argument in. It just kind of just automatically does it there.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I mean, if you could say if error.
Yeah.
And then you could say.
And then just throw it.
Res.json results. And you could say else this.
Oh, okay.
Wait, what is? I've never seen that syntax. If error res.json results. Like, if that's an error, you're not going to get that, right? Shouldn't you throw it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
I mean, all I'm saying here is if the error exists, right? If it's not undefined, then run this. Else, right? If there is no error, which will happen if this is undefined, because undefined is falsy, then it'll hit this and it will send back the result. That's all it's doing. That's all. You could you could throw an error if you wanted to. That's another way of doing it.
Is that a better way of handling the error instead of throwing the error?
Either way works, right? Because like if there is an error, like all you want to happen is you want the error. Oh well, I'm sorry. I would do this right there.
Yeah.
I just changed that from result to error.
Okay.
Yeah. So all I'm saying here is if there's an error, then show it to me. That's
it. Okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. And right now, guys, we're not using Sequelize. We're not using Handlebars. I'm just going over some basic Express. And I'm sorry, I used the word basic. We're going over Express, MySQL, and that's all.
Good.
Yeah, so no Sequelize just yet. So I want to make sure everyone's clear on this stuff before you jump in. And then we have a post right here. And so what's the main difference between a get and post, anyone?
A post it takes data from the user side and posts to the database, right?
Exactly. A post, perfect, right? Is that, say your name again?
It's Chase.
Chase? Well, thank you, Chase. Appreciate that, man. So you're exactly right. And that's a question we ask TAs and instructors when we're deciding whether we should hire them or not. What's the difference between a get and post? So get you can access via your browser, like in the URL, and you could hit it from your browser. A post, you can't do that unless you're using some special Chrome extension or something. Postman, exactly, right? A post, you could do a post request by using Ajax method post, and you have to pass in this URL to hit it, and then you'll be able to hit this route like that. Now, generally, what you do with a post is you insert into the database, like you said, you create stuff, you add stuff in, but I mean that's convention. You can do whatever you want inside of this post request. Nothing's stopping you from just sending back data. And not doing any inserts. It's convention. It's convention to insert into the database when you have a post route. Now,
can I ask a question about the way the data is transferred? Is it a get? I mean, I know you showed with the Chrome extension, it was kind of parsed into JSON, but post, isn't it stored in objects like natively without any Chrome extensions, or is that not true?
No, that's a really good point. So I'm sending back JSON here. So we saw in my incognito window, I lost it. Let me go to it. I mean, it's just sending back JSON, right? And it's my Chrome extension that's making it look like that, right?
Yeah.
And like if we had code, if we had an Ajax request, we would get back this, and it would come back to us as JSON, and we can basically loop through these chirps and add them to our page, right? Now with posts, we're gonna get our data from the request, right? We're gonna go into the body of the request, and we're gonna, inside of our body, we're gonna have access to all the name attributes of our form. Or the name attributes of what we sent to this post route. And so we're just inserting them right here. So we're saying insert into the chirps table, and insert these three values, right? Insert these three values into the author column, the body column, and the created at column. And what we're doing here is we're taking this query right here, and we're saying put rec.body.author into this question mark, which will go into author. Put rec.body.body into this question mark, which will go into body. I know this is probably a terrible name. Sorry, this should have been called something else. This has nothing to do with this the body over here, right? This has nothing to do with the body over here. I apologize. And then we have rec.body.created at. I meant this body has nothing to do with this body. Did I lose anyone?
One question. So request our body in the body, because we have a body parser that's parsed the data into that request our body, right?
Yeah, so rec.body is where all the information is that was sent to this post request right here, right? Rec.body includes all the information that was passed to this post, to this route.
I have an experience. If we didn't use body parser, the data actually you cannot pull data from rec.body. Is that correct?
Yeah, you need body parser to be able to do all this. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then right here, right, so we're doing rec.body.created at, and that goes into the third question mark, which goes into created at. And that's what's happening right here. And after this query ends, this anonymous function gets executed, right? It's a callback. And right here, we're doing res.end. We're not sending anything back because we're just inserting. We're just inserting to the database. That's all. Generally, you do send back a 200 status code, but we're not doing that here. Okay, let's go over the front end. Right, so that was the API routes. Now we have an HTML route. We have this, and what does this signify? Anyone? What does this route signify?
That would be the main
index.
Exactly, the index, right? When we go to the root of our application, when we go to localhost 8080, this is what we see. And that's what this route is doing. And what's happening here is saying res.send file, path.join, dir name plus this path, right? It's going to our public folder and going to the index.html file and serving our index.html file. Now, are we using handlebars here?
No, not yet.
No, not at all.
We are not using handlebars. We're just sending an HTML file right here. I want to make sure everyone's clear on this before we dive into Sequelize and then into handlebars. Any questions on this right here? What's happening here at all?
Nope.
Okay, so, right, this means our index, our base of our application, right, when we just go to localhost 8080, and it's just serving the index.html file from my public folder. That's all it's doing. And if I go into my public folder and go into my index.html file, we see a bunch of HTML. We see some Bootstrap. We see a link to jQuery. We see a link to moment.js, a link to this font, and our style sheet. And we have all this information right here. I mean, all this HTML is basically what we see over here. It's what we see over here. And we don't see any handlebars, so how are we loading all the chirps into this div right here? We're obviously doing it. It's right here. How are we doing that? How are we loading it? We don't see any handlebars, or we don't see each. We don't see a for loop. We don't see anything. How are we doing it?
Using
Everything,
Ajax.
Ajax, exactly, right? We're using Ajax. So if I open up chirp.js, we can see the Ajax that we're using, right? We have an on click over here. I'm gonna just compress this real quick with this arrow. Now we have a get request right here. The get function in jQuery is similar to Ajax. It runs an Ajax query with the get method. It cannot do posts. Now we're going to /API/all, and if you remember, if I go to API routes right here, let me do view, layouts, rows 2. If I bring down API routes right here and move up, we have API.get/API/all. And if I go back to index to chirp.js, we see that in our front end, this is the front end JavaScript, this is the back end JavaScript, completely different from one another, right? Completely different from one another. Now, I'm saying make a request to make a get request to API/all, this thing, and basically grab it. And as long as the data that's sent back, right? As long as the data that's sent back is not empty, that's what this is doing right here, loop over it, make a div, give a class of chirp, and add in the author and the body of the chirp, and the data was created at. And basically just format it properly with the moment library. And then prepend the row. And this prepend is just making it so the latest chirp gets put on top. Now, any questions on this?
Is there any module export going on at the moment?
Yeah, there's module exports going on everywhere, right?
Oh, okay, I see it.
Because inside of our backend code, we separated each of our routes out. We have API routes and we have HTML routes, and we're doing module.exports on this function right here. And we're basically importing it in our server.
To the server, yeah.
And in our server.js file, we can scroll down.
There it is.
We're requiring both of them right here, right? We're requiring both of our API routes and our HTML routes right here. Excellent. All right, any other questions about what we just did right now?
Explain difference between.
I'm sorry, can you speak a little louder?
Yeah, can you explain like get and post difference in Word one more time? Like.
Yeah, absolutely, I would love to. So if I go to the API routes, right here, now there's two main differences with get and post. And this is, guys, this is an interview question. Expect this on an interview. It's a common interview question. What's the difference between a get and post request? A get request will happen, can happen over the browser. Like you can, when I go to google.com, I'm making a get request to google.com right now. So a get request can happen over the browser. And the information is sent back actually, it's actually sent back. You could see the information that's sent back in a GET request in the browser, in the URL. So if I go to Google right now, again, I don't know why I closed out of it. If I go there, if I search on, what's your favorite band?
Maroon 5.
Maroon 5, okay. Right, and we see over here, we see how Maroon 5 is in the URL, right here. Maroon 5 is in the URL. That's how we can tell that it was a GET request, because you could see what you could see the value of what you typed from the form inside the URL. That's a GET request right there. And if you're going to make a GET request, if you're going to make one of your routes a GET request, you can access it from the browser. And if you want to grab data from it using your jQuery, you'd have to do a GET request. You'd have to write GET right here, primarily because of that. And you'd have to hit it like this. Now, if you do a post request, right, a post request, you would write the word post right here. And if you're going to, you would not be able to see what you submitted to a post request inside of the URL. You would only be able to get to it in the body. It's the HTTP body. And you won't be able to see it from the URL. And that's why people say a post request a little bit more secure when you're sending data. The reason why Google chose to use a GET request to send data is because you can bookmark this URL. Whereas with a post request, you can't bookmark the URL because it's not sent via the URL. It's sent back to the browser. So those are like kind of the differences right there. Now, post requests are mostly used to insert data here, insert data into a database, and GET requests are used to retrieve data from the database and send it back. Now, these are just conventions. You could do whatever you want, but these are the REST conventions. Do you have any other questions about GET and post?
Thank you.
Can I ask about what you were going over just before that question? You were looking at the routing. I think you were requiring, and you were also passing in an app as you were requiring.
Yeah, sure. So if I go into my server.js, if I go back to my API routes right here, right? The module.exports equals this function right here. We see this huge function, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you see how I'm taking it, I have an argument right here called app.
Yep.
Yeah. So if I watch what happens, right? I'm going to my server.js file right now. Let me pull this up at the top. And let me scroll down. So in my server.js file, which is the main file that runs when my application runs, right? I'm requiring this route file, and I'm passing an app right here. And if I scroll up, we can see app. It's basically just Express executed. It's how we can use Express, right? Okay. We're referring to the execution of Express right here, right? If we did not pass an app right here, this route would not be recognized by Express. We did not do this. Our route file right here would not be recognized by Express. Any other questions about this, guys?
So basically, the express function is looking for that API routes then.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We have this variable app. It's referencing the execution express right here. Express is just the express variable is just the npm package, right? And we're executing it right here. Why are we doing it like this? It's because the people who wrote Express, this is how they wrote it, and this is how you use it because they wrote it like this. And if we scroll down, we're saying pass in that app variable into this function, right? This is a function right here. These two are functions right here, and we know they're functions right here because it's a function right here, right? And it takes in this function takes in app. Any other?
Now, I've seen router express that, like, instead of running it with an app like that, I've also seen a lot of instances where people are using the express router functionality. Is that like a stage 2 thing that we should focus on after the fact, or what are the pros and cons?
Yeah, sure. Well, I would stick with this for a little bit, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's essentially when you're all routing is this. This is a route right here.
Right.
And if you wanted to, you could just put this directly in your server.js file, right? You could just put this directly in your server.js file too, right? You don't have to have a separate file for that. We just did that because it's a little bit, it's organized. Like I know exactly where to go for my API. I just go to this file. I know exactly where to go for my HTML routes. I go to this file. And it seems trivial right now, and it actually is trivial because there's only 3 routes. So it's kind of silly that we're doing this, but the good thing is if our application expands right now, like, and we have thousands of routes, we know exactly where our API is. It's right here. We know exactly where our HTML routes are right here.
Okay.
Any other questions on this, guys?
No, go ahead to the next one.
Next one? Okay, well, what I'm going to do right now is I have, in the getter, I have the files right here. What I want to do is I'm going to break you out into rooms, and I just want you to explain, like what this application is doing and how we can use Sequelize instead of how can we integrate Sequelize into our application? How can we integrate Sequelize into this application right here? So I'm going to make breakout rooms right now with Zoom. And I just want you guys to discuss that with each other. So I'm going to make 3 rooms. And go ahead. Join your room when you're ready. Hey there, guys. Any ideas on how to integrate Sequelize into that application that we just used? I think everyone's muted if you're talking right now.
What's the question again?
I just muted everyone. But if you can discuss like how we would integrate Sequelize into the application we just did, that would be amazing. I'm going to jump into another room and see how they're doing.
Rulers and routes and things like that.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
any ideas on how to do this?
Following the MVC.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes it a lot easier with the Sequelize ORM. You just have one controller file. You can use Sequelize to initiate a new model folder and a new config folder, which config JSON. And then you can reroute over there using a MySQL database.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then your I think you'll have to do like a Sequelize init, and that'll kind of grab all of your Sequelize files, and from there, your main models folder will kind of, or your main models file will kind of change up a bit to the Sequelize definitions and things like that.
Yeah, so just one controller, and all your models will be exported to that one. So it's one controller rules your entire models folder.
Awesome.
I'm still trying to figure out what kind of question I have though.
I'm curious about how to differentiate, how to use Sequelize with handlebars. Well, handlebars and or handlebars or just regular HTML. And how would you actually implement that? It kind of confuses me.
Pawan, I just have a simple question. It's where do you use app and the route in Express? What is the actual difference between those two?
Yeah,
Sometimes I see the code where we use.
App is used to create the routes, right? So you would make routes with app. App is just a variable name referencing the express object, right? You can reference express from app, and if you want to add routes, you would use the app variable.
Okay, so that's when they use, like I see some codes where they use app.use and then they give a route and they call it as the capital T router and they explain that way. And the other places they just have app. They send in the app though to the, I think I'm a little lost there.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I mean, depends on how they wrote the application, right? They can name it whatever they want, but in our case, we required Express, and we referenced it from a variable called Express, and then we have a variable called app, and we are referencing the execution of Express, right? Express parenthesis, and then we're using app, the variable name app, to create routes with it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's a really good question.
Everything's just documentation then.
Documentation forever.
Yeah. If you don't follow it, then you get more frustrated.
And why is the documentation so bad for Sequelize?
Imagine you're a developer and you are in the field. Your manager asks you to create something that probably requires an ORM, but you're using Node, right? And there really isn't any good ORM out there because mostly people were using Node with Mongo. And Mongo's not relational, so why do you even need an object relational mapper? But you're doing work with Node and MySQL, and you realize, okay, I need to make something to help me do this because it's an enormous project. So you make this thing. It's a basic object relational mapper, and you keep adding to it. You open source it, and boom, ton of people start contributing towards it. And you're just, you're a developer at this company. You're not working full time on this project. All of a sudden, it's really big, and the documentation sucks because you have no time to make it good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's essentially just that. Someone made this, and there isn't a ton of people making it really easy. I would love for you guys to possibly make a blog post on how to use Sequelize in a simple manner. That could be a cool thing that you do to contribute to the community.
Yeah.
Or
I guess my biggest question is like associations with Sequelize.
Sure.
That one confuses me.
Sure. I'm going to close the breakout rooms right now. Hey guys, I closed the breakout rooms. I'm sorry if you were in mid-conversation. I apologize for that. You are all muted also, by the way. The breakout room should be ending in about 35 seconds. I'm just waiting for some people to return to the main screen before we continue. So we have about 20 seconds. And as soon as that ends, we will begin the next part. Okay, excellent. So it seems like everyone's back here. Now, we had some great questions now in the breakout rooms, and I just wanted to make sure we go over them. One of the questions we had is, what's the difference between app and express, right? The app and express variables. And really it's just, let me share my screen right here. And opening up server.js, right? We have Express. We're requiring the Express package right here. And then over here, we have app. And we're basically executing Express right here. And we're referencing that execution right here from app. Now, the reason why we're doing that is because Express was literally written like that. Like the NPM package was written for you to use Express like this. And then you use variable app to add on things, right? We're adding on body parser right here. We're basically adding on our routes right here, right? So we could have done, just done this right here. We didn't have to include everything in a separate file. We could have just put in our routes like this. So you use app, right? You use this right here to add a route. And someone else mentioned that Sequelize is makes it so you can model things off of your database tables, and that's completely correct. Any other questions that came up in the breakout rooms? If there aren't any, then we'll dive right into Sequelize. So first off, opening my browser right here, I gittered out this zip folder, and that's the code I'm going to use next, right? I'm going to use this code right next. And I also have here the Sequelize CLI documentation. I'm going to gitter that out as well. So these are super important links. This link is very important. It's imperative that you use this NPM package and that you probably install this globally. So if you take this and run this globally, I have it already, I believe, probably do. I'll just run it anyway, just to show you guys. Right? It's gonna install this all over your computer. And it gives me a permission denied. If you see this command, then you have to run sudo and then the command right here. Or if you're on a Windows computer, you have to right click and make sure you're running this as running git bash as an administrator. You right click on git bash and you say run as administrator. And then you run this npm install -g command. But if you're on a Mac or you're on Linux, you do this. Running that, and I would enter in my password. And I typed in my old password. And then it will install properly at that point.
How can we see if any like npm package is installed globally or not in our computer?
That's a really good question. I'm positive that Can you Google that? I don't know off the top of my head how to see all the globally installed packages. The thing is, like, what you probably could do is there's this thing called grep, and if you do an ls on a certain file path on your computer, because these npm packages that you're globally installing are available somewhere inside of your user directory on your Mac or your C drive if you're on a Windows machine. If you do ls file path grep maybe G, it might show you everything. I'm seeing a message here in the chat. npm list -g. Okay, so let's try that right here.
With the dash def equals 0, you will only see the top label.
Cool. So it seems like these are all the packages I have installed globally with the dependencies that they have. I have a lot. Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm gonna open up Chrome right now, and so I gittered this out. If you're not already in this room, please join this room. Right, gitter.im/interview-weekly. So I'm gonna open this up right now. So let's go over some questions like, what is Sequelize? Someone already said it, an object relational mapper, ORM. There are many ORMs out there. Sequelize is a very confusing one, hard to use. If you understand some of Sequelize, the other ones are gonna seem much, much easier. Advantages, easier to test, gives you support for syncing to databases. Validation, very important, right? You could restrict how data gets saved into Sequelize, into your MySQL tables. Complex SQL queries in simple format. When you have there are different kinds of relationships. I'm sure a lot of you are here because you're thinking, man, relationships really confuse me with Sequelize, and they do. They are very difficult. How do you do a has many relationship with Sequelize? How do you do a belongs to many or a polymorphic relationship with Sequelize? That's where things get confusing. But that's also where Sequelize can really flex its muscles, because that's the true advantage. If you had to run all your queries manually, it's harder. It's harder to manage. It's harder to keep your code dry and scalable when you're not using an ORM. Okay, so this is how you install it into your Express package. If you're going to use this Sequelize in Express, this is how you install it. And if I open up the package.json of this Sequelize application, we will see that we have these 4 packages installed. And Express, of course, is our way of, it's our web application framework. MySQL is what? Everyone shout it out. Anyone? It's what?
Repeat that question. I didn't catch it.
I was just saying, what is MySQL in our case right here, generally? One word.
It's a NPM
database.
It's our database, right? It's our database of choice. And yeah, Santiago, you are absolutely right. This is our NPM. It's an NPM package that lets us connect to MySQL, but MySQL is MySQL. It's our database. And then body parser lets us parse the body of post requests and put requests and delete requests that come in. And now Sequelize is our ORM right here. So those are the packages that we're using in this example. And if I go back to Chrome right here, what's a Sequelize model? Well, model is the model in MVC, right? Model view controller. Model right here. Let's say this is our table, right? We have this table in MySQL. We have a country column, a phone code, capital, independence here. And this is how we would model it. This is what our model file would look like in Sequelize. We would specify the table name, and we would specify each column like this. Now, in other ORMs, I'll tell you right now, this code is like it's basically 2 lines in other ORMs. In Sequelize, you have to manually do everything. And the same thing with Express. Express is very manual. You have to do everything on your own. So That's where I'm saying like Sequelize is harder than other ORMs out there. So this is how you would model this table right here. You would basically say country. You would say it's the type, it's string. Phone code, it's an integer, right? Capital is a string as well, and then independence year is an integer. Any questions on this right here?
Let's see here.
If you don't include freeze table name, then it'll automatically assume that your table name is maybe capitalized. It won't assume that your table name is lowercase. Okay, and a lot of times you have a primary key. Now we didn't list a primary key right here, but if you did have a primary key, you would list what column is the primary key inside of here. Any questions on that?
In the way you're specifying string and integer, I noticed like the syntax is a little bit different than normal SQL syntax. Is that something we have to look up in the documentation, or is that, I mean, could you do tiny int in there for a Boolean, or?
Yeah, you would look that up in the documentation. If you wanted to specify things specifically, like a tiny int or a big int, things like that.
Cool.
On the blog. But generally, guys, try to use what you guys all should be doing, and this is what I do. What I do a lot. Thank you, Christian. Just share this right here, and I will put this in the getter. Right. The reason why I use the getter is because this chat will be gone when this session ends, but the getter won't. So I'm just going to send this over right here. Okay. And let me go back over here. Wait, sorry, going back to Chrome, apologize. All right, so freeze table name lets us use the table name that we specify over here. Otherwise, it won't use this name that we specify over here if we don't set it true. And over here, this is creating the table if it doesn't exist already, right here. Okay, so this is how we would do a select star with a where. So if we did select star from the table name, right? Select star from table name where the independence year is greater than is less than 50 years ago, then this is how we would do it in Sequelize. Right here. And the documentation obviously has it, but what you guys should do is as you're learning things, you should have a code snippets. A place where you store your code snippets. And actually, Christian, can you send out the gist? There's a way for.
Yeah, I'll post it in the getter.
Awesome. Yeah, right here. You could manage gists over here, and there's a way to manage them as code snippets. Oh, gist box. Yeah. So I'm gonna probably transition to this eventually, but right here, gist box. Right, so you can have code snippets over here, and that's what you should all do. If you don't have code snippets, then I mean you're learning a million things. You're learning a million things, so it's hard to manage all of that. So going back over here, now this is the same application we just went over before, and except we're using Sequelize. So if I open up app.js right here, if I open up server.js, it's basically the same exact thing. It's the same exact server.js file, but if we open up app, we have a models folder over here. So if I open up the models folder, there's a chirp.js file, and this is our model, right? So we are using Sequelize over here, where we are connecting to our database and referencing that by a variable named Sequelize. I mean, it would probably be better to name this like connection or something, but I'll just leave it the same thing because that's what you guys are gonna see. And then over here, what is this over here? Can someone answer what this is?
This is creating, this is my mic on.
It's your primary key, right?
It's my primary key, exactly, right? It's my primary key. So if I go into my database table, right? If I go into MySQL, and show databases and use Chirpy. Control L to clear my screen. Select star from chirps. This primary key right here, this ID, is mapped to this right here, to this chirp model, right? And we say auto increment is true, primary key is true, type is an integer. And then we have our author, our body, and our created at. And timestamps are set to false. So I'm gonna go back to the terminal right here, bring this over here, bring this over here. And we see ID is this, author is this, body is this, created at is this right here. And the names have to match. The names do have to match the column names exactly. It's very manual. Now, timestamps are set to false. Does anyone know what's going to happen if you set timestamps to true?
Created at columns.
Exactly, right? So it's gonna make two columns for us. It's gonna make created at, which we already have, but it's gonna also make updated at. To make two columns for us, created at and updated at. And that's what timestamp set to true will do. But we set timestamps to false right here. And then last but not least, we do chirp.sync. So it syncs with our database, and we export chirp right here. We export chirp at the bottom. So when we include the chirp.js file, we include this chirp.js file, we have access to this model. This model maps to the chirps table. And maps to the chirps table right here. Any questions on this so far?
Does not the Sequelize define, wouldn't it automatically create the ID and the created at as a default?
Yeah, if you set timestamps, if you did not include this, it would do created at and updated at. And from my experience, it's better to specify what your primary key is.
Okay.
Be as manual as you can.
It'll actually just infer that you want it to be that if you don't have that there.
Yeah, I mean, it will infer things automatically. Like it'll assume that you want timestamps. It'll assume certain things, but just be as manual as you can. Since you're already specifying like every column here, like just manually do it. In other languages like Active Record, like Ruby on Rails and on Django, like you don't do any of this in there. It's like your model file is very limited. It's like 2 lines. Okay, so now let's go to one of our routes. Let's go to the API routes right here. And here, what are we doing over here on line 7?
We're just requiring the chips.js file, which is the Sequelize file that we have.
Exactly, right? We're including the chirp.js file, this thing that we just went over, right? This model file, right? This file is exporting this chirp right here, the chirp variable, right? This chirp model. It's exporting this chirp model. So when we include it right here, we have access to that chirp model from this variable chirp. We capitalize it because that's convention when you're using a model in Express. And then over here, what we're doing over here in this route, it's very similar to before, but instead of a select star, we do view, layout, columns 2, extend this over, and let me actually bring over the API routes before. So if we look over here, trying to like sync it up. Okay, here we go, right? We see the same route from before. This is Sequelize. This is no Sequelize, right? We're doing a select star from chirps, and we're executing that query. And when that query is done, we're running this anonymous function, and then we're sending back the result over here. let me just make this a little bit simpler. We're sending back the result over here. And then over here, we're doing the same thing. It's almost one-to-one. The only difference is this. But what this is doing is actually just running select star from chirps. That's all it's doing. That's it. How do you know to do this? You look in the documentation. But in our case, all of you guys, what are you going to do? You're going to have a code snippet. You have a code snippet, so you're not going to even look at the documentation. You're going to just look at your code snippet because you have it right here. Any questions on this?
What's with the curly braces in find all?
So this takes in an object by default. So you can pass in keys and values to this object right here to further narrow down your result of what you're finding. But here we just want all of them. So we have an empty object.
Empty object.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Any other questions about this?
Yeah. As a if you were a backend developer, would you essentially be touching any of these routes and most of these, or at least half of this file?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a back-end developer, you would be touching this often. Front-end developers might not as much touch the back-end. I've spoken to a lot of front-end developers that say, it depends on the group that I'm working with. If the back-end developers are cool with it, they'll let me go in to their back-end and update these routes as necessary, right? But usually front-end developers don't touch these things, but as back-end developers, you'll be touching these heavily. Any other questions?
Yeah, I see that it doesn't hand back the error the same way. So how would you do error handling?
Oh, over here and then function results.
Yes.
That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head where the error would come back.
Someone just posted
Yeah,
the chat
that's correct.
catch error.
Yeah, using the catch.
You could chain a dot catch at the end of it. Sorry, I did it in the other chat.
Oh, right here. Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, so
So you just chain it right here, like that?
yeah, well,
No, I
Yes.
think after the then.
No, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I
So,
think that's
right where the
correct.
semicolon is. Exactly. And then you do function error and then however you want to handle that inside.
Cool, awesome.
No, sorry. I tried to oversimplify.
You were just trying to oversimplify. Got it. So you would do this.
Exactly, yeah.
And you just do console log
Exactly.
error like this. Cool.
So this is the promise sector.
Yeah, sure. This is it's kind of like that. Yeah, exactly. So let me put this in the getter for you guys. This is a great code snippet. Right. So here we go. Thank you, Christian. Can everyone give a thumbs up to Christian? I know everyone's video is off, but thank you, Christian.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. And now we go to post right here. And it's the same route as we see on the right. So on the left, we have Sequelize. On the right, we have the code in plain MySQL NPM package. So over here, we're doing an insert into the chirps table. And generally, that's what you do with a post request, right? It's a post request. Why? Why is it a post request?
Inserting into the database.
We're inserting into the database, exactly, right? We're also specifying that it's a post request right here off the app variable. And over here, we're doing chirp.create, and we're specifying the author column, the body column, the created at column right here. And remember, if I go into select star from chirps, these are our columns right here. These are our columns right here. We're not specifying the primary key ID because it's auto-incrementing, meaning it'll automatically go to 3. We don't specify what the ID is. So we're saying the author is going to be rec.body.author, rec.body.body, rec.body.created@. And what is rec.body? Anyone? Why do we access Rex, why do we access author like this?
The object.
Right? Yeah, go ahead.
It's sent in when you do the request post form. It's sent in as a parameter.
Exactly, right? It's sent in as a parameter when you submit the form or you make the AJAX request. The name attribute of the form is the key, is this author, right? We use body parser. That's why we use body parser in a package.json file right here, body parser. And that's why we use it over here as well, right? We set up body parser over here, so we can do all that. Any questions on that? Go ahead. Okay, so this is the same as this right here, right? We're just inserting into the chirps table. So I'm going to copy this, paste this into the getter. And copy this and paste this into the getter. There we go. And I'm going to run a breakout room. And I just want you guys to quickly discuss, just make sure everyone around you understands how this is the same as this. Okay? I'm going to run the breakout rooms right now. And let me stop sharing my screen. And then we'll get deeper into Sequelize afterwards.
Cool.
It's a lot easier to write like complex queries and to do inner joins. It just works a lot easier. Yeah.
Yes, Will. And the MySQL is built into it implicitly because that's why they call it an object relational mapper. What you're doing is map
the query. We didn't really need that anymore. It kind of cuts the work for us.
Yeah, I think he sent that out just so we can compare it to the other two.
Yeah, it's a little easier to read if you're thinking of CRUD, the like CRUD operations and stuff. You want to, it's easier to just see chirp.create instead of like insert into connection.query.
And then I guess like the top one is probably even easier because it's doing less things. But we're just finding all the chirps, and if we either give it an empty object or nothing at all, it just knows to look for everything. But like if we in that object, if we did something like I'm typing it out right now. I don't know, author equals if we pass an object that looked like that inside of find all, it would only find authors whose name is Ben Franklin. But if we do nothing, then it's like, all right, then we just want them all. We don't want to be like specific.
So if you only pass author with nothing in there, you without Ben Franklin, it's pretty much just gonna grab all, correct?
Exactly, yeah. And you can do like where. So basically, the main like key you'll kind of be using with that is like the where kind of key, which its value is another object, which you're describing which things you want to look for, if that makes sense.
Got you.
How do you guys feel about like the dot catch? I don't think you've seen that before.
I don't think I've seen that before.
You might have seen something similar in jQuery. Like I know that there's like a dot fail in like jQuery.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen that.
Or you can use dot catch or jQuery now too. It's like the same thing. Basically, it tries to then, and then if something breaks, like that didn't work out for whatever reason, maybe there was like some issue talking to the database. Maybe the user was trying to insert some stuff that they're not really allowed to insert. Whatever. Then the dot catch happens instead, and you can say like what you want to happen when there's an error, which is generally good to have, because like if there's an error, because like if there's an error and like you don't do anything about it, you just kind of let it happen, it could like take down your whole like Node app. So it's a good way to handle that. Maybe at first when you're building things out, you want to know like where they're happening, but like later you kind of want to do something a little bit more graceful with them.
Yeah.
Do you see that in the getter now, or like are you?
Yeah, I got in there. Thank you.
Okay, cool. No problem. Anybody else? I feel like there's at least like 2 questions somewhere.
Yeah, I'm looking at the code. I had to think. Yeah, I'm here paying attention to the code. Here's JSON results. Well, no, that's the first part. Make sure
This is probably in a way easier than the ORM you guys like used before. It's just
because in all
one Sequelize query, it's easy to integrate as long as you have your code snippets. It's really easy to get something up and running. Once you do one, it's you could easily integrate another within seconds. Like I have a lot of boilerplates that I use in order to save me a lot of time. To not spend hours writing like login authentication on something when I already have the SQL model built.
And you guys are lucky. You got Jared in your room.
I'm lucky to have them.
Oh man. No, Jared's right. I mean, it used to take me I remember it took me 2 weeks to do time zones and to be able to deal with them on the front end. And now it takes me like 30 minutes, like max, to implement it for an application because of code snippets, right? It's like, just like, here we go. I've already done this before. I know this code works.
Yeah, and that's one of my for it. Absolutely, yeah, and that's one of my favorite things about the bootcamp is I still I'm sure I'll be going back to the code a lot as I continue JavaScript, because just having the code there is simply great. There's a lot of great code within within the bootcamp. And I didn't understand it at first, but now it's funny. You go back on things, and I still don't understand everything. So I love going back and then doing my best to understand it. That's always great. So just having that code around, because you solve a lot of problems that way too.
Awesome. I'm going to end the breakout rooms now. Jared, I'm going to call on you to just go over what you went over in your group.
Okay.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Hey everyone, I'm sorry if I stopped your conversation midway. I'm waiting for everyone to return before we continue.
Hey, Pavan, if you also want to call on Mark, had a really good explanation about Sequelize and how it differentiates from doing the ORM with MySQL. So,
excellent. I'm going to call on you and Mark and Christian and anyone from the previous breakout rooms.
If you don't mind me putting you on the spot, Mark, I really like your explanation.
You're being called upon, Mark. Okay, excellent. Now we have everyone here. So what I wanted to do was we had some leaders that just emerged from the rooms, TAs, tutors that are here for, the love of teaching. I'm going to call on Jared first. Jared, can you go over what you guys discussed in the breakout room, like what you clarified?
Yeah, we discussed basically the difference between using Sequelize and writing queries using MySQL. The difference between the packages, and with Sequelize, you could write a lot less code and a lot easier to read code. And it was basically what Sequelize is. It's condensing the queries into functions which it's then materialized by you calling your models, and then use like user.findAll instead of select from users where. So it just shortens your code, makes your code easier to read, and has it all basically within the JavaScript.
Awesome. And Mark, would you like to share what you discussed? You're probably muted, Mark.
Sure.
Yes.
So I just I tried. Jared went into detail, but basically what Sequelize is doing is like when we were in class, we actually had to create our own object relational mapper, and Pavan was actually the one that taught us to do that. So when you are creating your app, if you want to do anything with MySQL, you have to create JavaScript functions in order to use MySQL. So let's say you have a function that you wanted to get all of the data. You'd have to create another function just to query the database. And then with the MVC, you have to import the connection. So that there is a lot of JavaScript that you have to create out of the box. So what we're basically doing with Sequelize is we're mapping our JavaScript to MySQL. So we're just cutting all of that stuff from the middle out and getting right to the heart of what Jared was just talking about.
Awesome. Thumbs up for Mark. Killer explanation, man. And Jared. Christian, last but not least, anything that you clarified for your team?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same, which I guess is what happens when you go last. But I guess we also talked about the find all method and the bracket that's inside of it, and just like how you might like what might you use other than an empty bracket. So I kind of like gave them an example of how you can like describe an object that you're looking for, and then it'll send back like all the rows in the table that kind of match that. And I guess like another thing that we talked about was, compared to like the ORM that like they've been writing for class, this is like a lot less code. It's a lot more readable. And this is like, using like a database, you're really going to be doing like 4 things over and over again. You're going to be creating data, you're going to be reading data, you're going to be updating data, you're going to be deleting data. And this is like 50% of the things that we've just learned right here that you're going to be doing 80% of the time. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Christian. Rock on, man. Cool. All right, so I shared what Christian was talking about in the getter. What he used as an example was you could have where author is Ben Franklin, and you can only return records that have an author of Ben Franklin. Find all the records like that. So what I want to really do now is I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to show you 2 more examples, and then I'm going to live code from scratch. And I have not practiced this at all. So, because I think it's helpful when you see an instructor struggle. I think it makes you feel good about yourself, that you feel better about yourself when you see someone that's experienced struggle. So hopefully I struggle a little bit. But before that, over here, this is an example where we're not using find all, we're using find one. Find all will return an array. Will return an array in the result, whereas find one will return an object, one record. And so over here we're saying find one where the route name rec.params.characters, right? This is a totally different example, totally different file, where a column name named route name is this characters thing. And then if it is, then it's going to return that object right here, as opposed to find all with empty brackets, right? So find one returns one record in an object. Find all returns an array of records. Any questions about that?
Find one, find all.
So like the main difference I would say is like find one is like there might be multiple things that match like the query for find one. Like there might be multiple route names that are like Yoda or whatever, but it's going to find the first one and just send that back and stop. Whereas find all is going to send back everything that matches that query.
Exactly. So if there's multiple things, it'll find the first one. But some cases you just want one, right? Because you know, like you don't want an array and you just want to return one record. So that's why you would use find one. Whereas find all, you know that there's like multiple records and you want to find all of them. And then over here, we're just creating something again. Same deal as before, right? Character.create. Character is the model, the Sequelize model. Now I'm going to go to another thing right here. This is a model or a to-do table. And over here we have some custom validation. So here's another reason why Sequelize is nice, because if you're doing straight SQL queries, anyone can add anything into their tables. Anyone can add anything. Any developer can add anything. Whereas here, if everyone's using the Sequelize model, you can make sure that whatever is getting put into this column, into this text column, is between 1 and 140 characters. So this is another reason why Sequelize is nice. So now, any questions about what I just went over?
Pavan, also with find one, you typically use that with an ID. Like if you're using an ID on your table, you know, you wouldn't use it if you had multiple instances of like a person's first name, like John, for instance.
Yes, so ID 3, right? So you would find only one, right? You wouldn't do this for find all. Excellent point, Mark. Right? Find all. You could do this with a find all, but you're going to get the object back and inside of an array, and then you have to go to the first element of that array. Whereas here, you don't have to do that. It's a little less work. You just get one object back. Okay. So now, what I will do now is let's start a blank new file, and let's just use Handlebars, and then integrate some MySQL and Sequelize. Okay, guys?
Okay.
From scratch. All right, so I have not planned this, so I am going to make a folder. Someone help me.
MKDIR.
Nice, awesome.
And whatever you want the folder name to be.
Cool, so we'll make a Bands app, right? And I'll go into the Bands app, right? Remember to use tab to autocomplete, right? Don't type out the file names. And we have this right here. Now, what I'll do is I can create an Express app from scratch, right? But first, what I'll do is I'll create a package.json file. I don't know what I just did right now. Okay, there we go. I somehow did something weird over there. Okay, so I'm going to create an npm package. A package.json file. I do npm init, press enter, and I will give it the name of bands. Press enter, enter description. This is a bands app. Entry point index.js. We'll say server.js. No git repo. Bands. And this looks good to me right here. That's what our package.json file will look like. Yes, enter, clear, ls, and we have a package.json file right here. I will open this up with a Sublime Text shortcut that I have in my bash profile. And it opens up right here. So this is what my file looks like. I'll make a new file called server.js right here. And now what I have to do is add in some routes, right? And install Express and everything. So what I'll do is I will install Express. And I included -- save right here because I wanted to go into my package.json file. Press enter, wait 10 minutes. And if I go back over here, right? Here's my package.json file. I have Express 4.14.1, and I have a node modules folder, and it put in all the dependencies of Express, basically everything that Express uses to be Express, and the Express package right here. And now I'll go into my server.js file, and because I don't know anything at all, I will go into a previous file. I'll go into a previous file where I have code, and I will copy the server.js file. I'll go into, let's see, right here. Nope. Let me go into, not these. Here we go. And I will copy all of this over here. And I will save this, and this will break because I don't have this npm package installed. So I have to install this npm package, Express Handlebars. Let me go back into my terminal, and I will do npm install Express Handlebars -- save, and it will install Express Handlebars. Boom. And if I open up my package.json file, we have Express Handlebars now. And what I'll do right now is what everyone should do. You should run your code often. If you code a ton. So I'll run node server.js. And I got no errors. Of course, nothing happened, but that's okay. Because I did not write that much at all. So what I'll do right now is let me put in a basic route over here. I'll put in this. And I'll do rec.send hello, and let's try this. And nothing happened at all. Does anyone know why nothing happened at all right now?
Should be a res.send.
Res.send. That's good. Is there? Why did my server not start up at all?
Well, because your port
listening.
You're not listening on your port number.
Exactly right. I defined my ports to be 3000, but I'm not running this on port 3000. So in the previous example, I was running my code on port 8080 in the Chirpy example. So let me open up server.js right here. And over here, I have my code right here. It's running on this port. So let me go over here, and I will paste this at the bottom. And I'll put port right here. All right, because that's what I'm putting right here, port 3000. And let me run this again. Apps listening on port 3000 now. So now let me go to my Chrome browser, and let's go to localhost 3000. And I see rec.send is not defined. And who was the person that said it should be res.send?
Well, I'm Chris, but it says Garen right now.
Garen? Well, we'll go with Garen because that sounds badass. You sound like an anime villain. So we'll do res.send, save this, and now let me go to my browser and press enter, and nothing will update because I did node server.js. So what I'll do here is I'll run this with Nodemon. Nodemon will watch for changes as I update my server.js file. Let me press enter right here. and we get hello.
Quick question. What is Nodamon? Because I didn't catch, I guess I never caught on to
Yeah,
that.
sure. No, absolutely. Nodamon, GitHub. Let me just give this to everyone right now. Nodamon is this NPM package that watches for, it's basically, it's the same thing as running Node on your server.js file, but it'll watch for changes. And as changes happen, it'll restart your server for you. So you don't have to do Control-C, up, press enter, and rerun it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so to install Nodamon, you would do npm install -p Nodamon, but this is for Mac or Linux.
Do you have to install it on the global level or just in the folders that you want?
I would install it globally.
Probably globally.
Otherwise, you don't want this to have to install every single time. I believe it's a big npm package. I could be wrong, but on a Windows machine, you would run git bash as an administrator, and then you would run this. You wouldn't put sudo in front of it. Okay, so going back over here. So we got our app working. Let me try to get Handlebars working now. So what I'll do over here is I'll go to my previous code. I'll go to my previous code over here. And let me go find where we use handlebars in the past. 15.1. And over here, we have a views folder, right? We have a views folder. We have layouts. We have these handlebars files over here. So what I'll do is let me model this exactly like this. Let's go over here. Right, I'll make a new folder called views. And inside this views folder, I'll make a new folder called layouts. And inside this layouts file, I will make a main.handlebars file. And inside this views folder, I'll make a new file called index.handlebars. Right here, and I will just save this as it is. Save this as it is. Let's go over here and look at what we used over here for main.handlebars. So I will copy this over and I'll explain this in a hot second. Right, so the reason why we can't see anything is because it's set to plain text. And now what this is doing is it's saying throw any handlebars file, right? I'm in the main.handlebars file of the layout folder. And it's saying throw any code into this block right here. Throw any handlebars file into this right here, into this template. So this is a template, this is a layout. It's kind of like a template, and it's going to load any handlebars file that we have into this main.handlebars file. Any questions on that?
So if you were to fail to put the last bracket, would it still display something, but is it as an object? Because the 3 means it wants to show as HTML, right?
Yeah, essentially. So, I mean, you want the third bracket there, because otherwise it's basically expecting a key called body, and it does not exist. So you want the third bracket right there. What I'll do is I'll remove the third curly bracket, and you'll see what happens when that happens, okay? And by the way, guys, I'm going to push all of this up to GitHub, and I'll share the link with you on the Gitter when I'm done. Okay? All right. So I'm going to go back to the Ben and Jerry's example. I'm going to go to package.json, and we see I have express-handlebars. I'll install handlebars. I guess they have both of them, so I'll install both. Jared, Christian, do you guys know if I need both?
I'm pretty sure you need both.
Okay, so I'll install both. And if I jump for any reason, it's because there's this huge bug near me, and I don't know what to do right now. My cat has basically given up on killing these bugs, but yeah, I'll just deal with it. All right, so I will do Control-C, and I'll do npm install handlebars -- save. And now I will go into my package.json file. We have handlebars over here, right? I'll go back into my server.js file right here. And over here, I'll go into my server.js file, into my example application. And I keep looking back at that bug. And now what I'll do is I will copy over these two things into my server.js file. And it looks like I already did. I already included them right here. So I can load my index.handlebars file right now from my server.js file. Right, instead of doing res.send-hello, I can basically send back a handlebars file. Right, I can respond to the user's request to my server with a handlebars file as the response. And a handlebars file compiles into what language? What markup language does a handlebars file compile into? Anyone?
JavaScript?
HTML.
Close. HTML, right? Handlebars compiles into HTML. So right here, let me go into, scroll down, and basically we do res.render right here. So let me copy this over. Res.render, and I'll say index right here. I'll save it. And let me try running this. Node on server.js, pressing enter. No errors, so let me try it. Let's go back to localhost 3000. Before it was hello, now let's see what happens. Index.handlebars. Did that work?
See your code. Yeah, it's working. That's what you have in there.
Yeah, it's just loading this file. So if I look at the HTML right here, which I can do, I can just right click on this, inspect, and go into my inspector. And you know what? This looks kind of, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So I'll do right click, view page source. For some reason, I can't do that. Page, view developer, view source. And we can see right here, this is what gets rendered. It says Ben and Jerry because I copied and pasted. Any questions on what just happened right here? Any at all? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to delete the bracket, the third curly bracket, in my main.handlebars file right here. Not my index.handlebars file, but my main.handlebars file. I'm going to save it, and let's check what happens, right? Localhost 3000, press enter. Right here, and let me check out the view page source right here, view source. Seems like nothing happened, but.
Would you not have to restart the connection?
Yeah, I guess I have to restart here. Let me try that.
What is it? Did you save that?
I feel like I did save it. I feel like I really did save this. Let me do, hey there, up here. Make this an H1. Run this again. Okay, looks like hey there just came up. View page source. Move the index on handlebars. Looks like there's nothing that changed. That's kind of weird. But what I will do is I will do this change again and see if there's a mistake. I know there's something that goes wrong when you don't include three curly brackets right there.
It's not changing because you don't have any HTML in there, so it's not escaping.
That's a really good point. So let's put some HTML in here.
Yeah, but yeah. Well.
Let's run this again.
Yeah, it took solid change.
Let's change this to 2. Ah, there we go. Awesome. Who said they had no HTML in there? Well, whoever you are, great job. Thank you. Right. So it doesn't have any. It didn't have any HTML in there before, and that's why it looked the same. And now it does, and it'll just display it like text if you don't include 3 curly brackets. Saving this. And now what we can do is we can pass in data. We can pass in data to this, right? So if I passed in band name right here, and let's give it Christian's favorite band, the Backstreet Boys. And now I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna run this right here, and it gives me an error. And can anyone recognize what the error is right here?
That's not render. You're
Should be a
missing
comma,
something?
right?
Comma, right? This should be a comma. It shouldn't be a period, right? So let's go back and let us fix this. Change this to a comma. Save this. And if you saw right here, my app automatically restarted because it sensed a change in my server.js file. Hey there, we don't see Backstreet Boys over here. We don't see Backstreet Boys over here. I sent Backstreet Boys band name over to the index.handlebars file. Why don't we see anything in the index.handlebars file? Anyone?
Is the receipt that in the index handlebar?
You haven't used it
You
anywhere?
have to have the
I have not used it. I have not used it, right? So let me do view, layouts, roads 2. Put this over here. I have not used, see, I'm rendering index.handlebars. Why don't I have to put handlebars right here? Because I specified handlebars up here, right? I specified handlebars right here. So if I include it like this, band name, save, run this, we see Backstreet Boys, right?
Mm.
So that's how handlebars works. So you specify what file you want to run, right? What handlebars file you want to run right here, and you pass it some data. You pass it some data, and you pass the data always in an object. It has to be an object. It can't be a string. It can't be a number. Watch what happens when I do Backstreet Boys like this. Save this. Let's run this, and it breaks. It breaks right here, and it says cannot sign to read-only property locals of Backstreet Boys, right there. So let me change that back. Band name, and now let's add in some other stuff, right? Let's say band, right? We got Backstreet Boys. We'll say fave band is Backstreet Boys. And we'll say bands, we got NSYNC. And we have, this just escapes this apostrophe. And then we have 5. We have Soul Decision. And now let's display all those bands on the page. And we see all of them right here. Now, the thing is, like, it just displays them as if it's an array right here. So how do we loop over these names right here? Off the top of my head, I forget. I know it's like dot each or something.
For
what I'll do is I'll look up the documentation.
Isn't it pound each?
Yeah, pound each.
Pound each.
Yep.
Let's do that. Pound each. And let's put this right here. Slash each. And I forget, is it this?
This dot bands or something.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
Let's try that. And let's run this. Let's go back to.
I think we're missing something after the this, but.
Okay. Looks good. It worked. So now I'll turn this into a UL right here. Change this into an LI tag. Save this, run this. Nothing changed. Well, now it did. So now we have a list of our bands right here, right? And if you notice, this band name does not appear here. Why does this band name not appear? Why does anyone know why this is like not appearing on the page?
Pass to the
It doesn't exist there anymore.
It doesn't exist. Perfect, right? It does not exist. We don't have a band name key here, right? We have a fave band key, but we don't have a band name key. And if you notice right here, like it didn't throw an error, and that's like something that Handlebars does. It won't throw an error if if you're using a key that does not exist right here directly. Now, if I change this to fave band, right? I run this. Our favorite band is Backstreet Boys, right? And we have Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, 5, and Soul Decision right here. Any questions on this?
So is there a way that we could make sure that Handlebars returns an error, or that's just how it renders and it's kind of dangerous sometimes?
There could be a way of doing that, but from my experience, I've used like many frameworks, and this is like a property of most templating engines. Like if you don't use, as long as you're just directly using the key of whatever's being sent to the view, and if it doesn't exist, then it just won't throw an error. Unless you're looping over it. If you're looping over it, it might throw an error. Any other questions, guys, on just what we went over?
Is there a way to limit the number of records that are looped over? In other words, if I just wanted like the first 10,
you would have
a total of 100 or something.
No, that's a really good. So what you would do over here is var bands, this, right? And you could do bands dot splice, right? You could run a splice function on it, and you could say var spliced bands, and you could say go from 0 to 2, right? 0 to 0, 1, 2. Sorry, 0, 1, and 2. And then you could refer to the spliced bands variable over here. If I run this again, Soul Decision should disappear. Looks like more than one disappeared. But let me see if I did 0, 3 and run this again. There we go. We got, now it just returns the first 3. It cuts off Soul Decision. So that's something you could do over here. Or if you're using MySQL, which you probably will be, and Sequelize, you could do where. You could do a where in. You could do a limit. You could do a limit on the data that comes back in your SQL query.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions, guys? Anything else? Okay. Well, let's continue on. Let's make a form. So what I'll do here is I'll do new file, new.handlebars, and we'll make a form. And my autocomplete does not work because it's plain text. So I'll make it HTML right here, form. And I want to make this a post. Method equals post. Action equals slash, let's call it new band, right? And so let me do input type equals text and name equals band right here. And let's make a new one, input type equals submit and submit. I forget how to do this. I usually copy and paste. So I saved it
as a submit button.
What'd you say?
Should it be the button as a submit button, not the input?
Yeah, this should make a submit button right here, I think. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to refresh this page. Nothing happened. Why did nothing happen? Anyone?
No route handler to handle the request.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't update my server.js file. I didn't add in a route to literally take. I'm going to the main route and I'm loading in the index handlebars file. I'm not loading in this new handlebars file that I just made. It's going nowhere. It's going nowhere at all. I'm actually going to add placeholder equals band. Put your band over here. And put a server.js. And let me make a new route. I'll make a post. And let's go back to new.handlebars, new band. That's the URL that it's going to. Method post, new band over here. And what I'll do is I'll just do console.log, I'll do res.send rec.body right here. And I'll save this. Actually, it has to be get. I'm sorry. A get slash new, and I have to render this handlebars file. I was getting ahead of myself. So I have to do res.render new, and I don't have to pass in anything. I'm not passing in any data. And now if I go to slash new, we see this, and we see submit thing. So I can just delete the, if I go into new right here, I can delete this. I don't need that. Go over here. And now I could add my band name and click submit. So if I do, let's say Pantera, submit, it says cannot post to new band. You can't post a new band because that request, that route does not exist. So I go over here to server. Let's make a post route now. New band. And I'll do res.send rec.body. And now let's try that again. I'll go back to new. And I'll do Pantera. Submit. And it goes to new band. I don't get that error, but nothing sends back. And the reason why nothing sends back is because what package am I missing over here?
Body parser.
Body parser. Thank you, Lori. Awesome. So I have to install body parser. So what I'll do is I'll do npm. I'll close out of Nodemon, Control C. I'll clear my screen. I'll do npm install body parser -- save. And if I look at my package.json file, I have body parser now. And now what I'll do is I'll go into server.js and I'll add the body parser stuff. I forget what all of that is, so I'll just go somewhere else where I am using it. Let's go to that chirpy example and go to server.js. And let me copy all this stuff right here and paste that over here. Save it. And now let me try submitting something to this post route over here, right? Let's try that now. So let's go back to the browser. Wait, I didn't start my server, so I have to do that. So I'll do Nodemon server.js, press enter. And it says there's an error with body parser because I never defined that variable. So I have to copy this over. Put that over here, save that, and let's try this again. Oh wait, new, yep. Okay, so now let's do Pantera again, submit, and it sends back right here. Sends back right here. And the reason why it's banned, the reason why we have the banned key right here is because the name of this input, sorry, one second, I'll just mute everyone. Participants, mute all, continue, cool. Sorry, I muted everyone. The reason why we have banned right here in Pantera here is because the name attribute of this input is banned, directly correlates to this. And what this is right here is rec.body, right? So over here, we're sending back rec.body. Right here, we're sending back rec.body. And you can see my cat right here. All right, cool. Now, next step is let's integrate Sequelize. Let's integrate Sequelize. So let's go to the Sequelize CLI. Right, so I already installed this. Right, so but to use Sequelize, we need to if I go to the package.json file, I need to have a Sequelize npm package. Now this is different. this Sequelize NPM package is different from the Sequelize CLI. Right? These are two different NPM packages. So I'm going to install a Sequelize package. I'm also going to install a MySQL package also. So let's install both of them. I'll do Control C, clear, npm install MySQL -- save. And I'll do npm install Sequelize -- save again. I run this. I know this is supposed to run till 9. I'll do this for another like maybe 10 or 15 minutes and open up to questions. I hope that's okay. This is being recorded, so if you do have to leave, you can. I'm gonna just continue so we have like a front to back explanation of Sequelize. Okay, so I have those two things. And now if I take a look at my application and go to my package.json file, we see MySQL and we see Sequelize. And so let's go over here. And oh wait, let me just go into the getter. So if you are going to leave, I would love for you to fill this link out. I would love for you to fill this link out and use this code right here. So if you're gonna leave, can we actually do that right now before we forget? Just go to this link in Getter and put in this code and fill this out right here, this form. It's gonna help us run these sessions better and better with your feedback. Okay, so I have Sequelize and I have MySQL in my app. And now let me set it up. Let me make sure I can use it appropriately. So if I go into this application, we see I have nothing over here, right? I have nothing over here. And if I go into the application, I have a config folder with a connection.js file. And I have a models folder, I have a public folder. And what I can do is I can go to the Sequelize CLI over here, and I can check if there's anything that helps me make these folders, right? Off the top of my head, I don't really know what auto-generates all this, but if I look right here, it says init, right? So I can run Sequelize init, and that will initialize the project. So let's try that right now. So I'll do clear, I'll do ls, I'll do Sequelize init, and we'll see what happens right here. Okay, so if I go into my folder, we see that it made a seeders folder, a node mod, well, that was already there. It made a models, it made a migrations, and made a config. And it put in my config.json right here. So it auto put it in right here. And actually just assumed what my database will be. In development, which is what we're working on right now, into test, which is if we're running tests, it would use the database _test, and database production. So if I go into I'm going to stop for a moment. Does anyone have any questions on what I just did? No one? You're all muted, just letting you know. Okay. Anyone?
Nope, clear.
No, I'm clear over here.
Awesome. All right. So what I'll do now is I'll go into MySQL. And I did Control L to clear the screen, show databases. And I basically don't see this database development right here. So what I'll do is I'll create database development, or whatever I call this. So I'll call this bands, right? And I don't actually need to create bands tests because I'm not running any tests right now. And I certainly don't have to create band production because this would live in production. So I would just create bands development. So let me just create this database. Create database, and I screwed up. Create database, and I created a database. And we see we have a database named bands development right here. So let me save this, and let's run this and see there are any errors. Let me go to localhost 3000, new band, cannot get new band. Let me run this again. localhost 3000 slash, oh, it's new, sorry, slash new. And if I submit this, okay, that worked. Good. So everything works still. And now what I want to do is let's make a band table and a band model in Sequelize. And let's try that. So I'll go to the Sequelize CLI right here. And there's got to be some kind of scaffolding thing that would make my model and create my migration for me. So I see migration create right here. So, and I don't see anything else. So what I'll do here is I'll run help migration create just to see if there's anything I'm missing. So I'll do shell new tab to open up a new tab. So this is the help documentation. You can access it directly from your terminal. And it shows me this is how I would create a new migration file, and this would generate a new migration file right here for me. So let me create a new migration file. And let's go. And I didn't give it a name, so it gave it unnamed right here. So let me try it again with a name. Let's call it bands. Right here. And ask bands is not in your file. So that didn't work, but I know that it created one without a name over here. So I could just name this on my own. I can go to the bottom. I could say bands. And my cat's like looking in my head right now. So, I can go into this bands thing and I can add in what I need to be able to create a bands migration right here. So over here, I don't see anything directly in the Sequelize CLI that helps me. It's probably in the Sequelize documentation on how to create a migration file. So I'll go to migrations over here.
Ask a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
Should we create a model first before we do the DB migrate to create it?
Should you create the model first before the migration? So migrations are basically version control for your database. So you could always create your migrations first before making your model files. And so what migrations are is, let's say you add a new table into your database, right? You add a new table to your database. How does the other developers on your team know that you added this new table to your local database? They don't, unless you make a migration file, right? And let's say you update a database table. You want to make a migration to update it. You don't want to do all that manually from your own database, because otherwise no one else is going to get that code.
Okay.
Cool. So what I'll do right now is I can either copy this over, or I could take a look at the code that I know works. So I'll go back over here and let's go to I actually don't know if I have any migration files over here.
Yeah, for a while it's not going to be in there because for a while it was broken and it just started working again with Sequelize.
Okay, so I'll just copy this over.
I have a reservation for 7:15. Can you make it?
For Yoshida?
Yeah. You make it?
Let me mute everyone. 1 second. Sorry. Okay. All right. So give me a thumbs up if you can hear me still. All right, cool. Awesome. So let me just copy and paste this in here. And it says, let's see, query interface, right? Query interface, that kind of matches up right there. We'll call this bands. ID SQL, we'll have an ID. We'll have a name for our band. Name, I don't want it to be date. I want this to be what? What do I want my name to be? You're all muted.
String.
String, yes. Right, so I'll call it a string. And that's all I will have right now. I'll delete everything else. Right here. And then over here we have my ISAM, Latin 1 public. Interesting. So it says PostgreSQL only. PostgreSQL is another version, is another type of SQL database. Less popular than MySQL, but much more robust. I'm going to delete this, see if this all just works. And down, I don't have anything here. I would drop the database. I would drop this table. So I would go over, let me see, drop table. Right here. So I would do query interface dot drop table. Bands. And I don't have any options right here. And now I have to run my migrations, right? Because I don't have this table in my database at all. So if I go over here, I have no tables at all in my database right now. I have none. So now I have to run my migration that I just created. I have to run my migration file. So let me go to the Sequelize CLI again. It's probably Sequelize DB :migrate. That's probably what it is, but I don't want to guess. That's probably what it is. So it's Sequelize DB :migrate. So I'll run that in my thing. Run it. And it migrated my thing. And you should always use migration files. Again, if you're not using migration files, you're not thinking about any other developers except yourself, right? Because otherwise, when you add in a table, when you add in columns, and a developer pulls down your code, the code is expecting those columns to be there, is expecting those tables to be there, but your local database does not have those tables. So if you don't have migrations, then basically the developers won't know. Like their code will break when they pull down. Okay, so I just migrated that. If I go into my MySQL and I run show tables, we see we have bands and Sequelize meta. So if I do select star from bands, we have none. If I do show columns bands, show columns, I forget the syntax to show columns. Show columns MySQL table and see what Google gives me. Describe table name. There we go. So in our table, we have an ID, we have a name. ID is an integer. It is auto-incrementing. It is the primary key. It is not null. It has no default value. The name is a string. This is what a string is. Varchar 255, that's what it defaults to for MySQL. It can be null, and it has no default value. Now let me show the tables again. We have Sequelize meta right here. If I do describe Sequelize meta right here, this is what it has, a column called name, and that's it. That's all it has. It's a column called name. If I do select star, we see this. And what is this right here? Anyone?
It's your migration file.
Yes, Lori, it is my migration file. It's saying that I executed this. So if I run Sequelize DB :migrate again, it's going to say no migrations were executed. Database schema was already up to date because it checks this table. It checks this table and it finds this migration was already run. So it's not going to run it again. So as a developer, you could do git pull origin master, right? Pull. And then if any new migration files come in, you would run Sequelize db:/migrate, and then it would update your database to whatever database changes that people made, right? Any questions on that right there? Any questions at all on that?
Just quick question. I just read the manual. When it said Sequelize model ;create, it actually generated the model and its migration file altogether.
Oh, so that was the command. It was Sequelize db create. That was the one.
Model.
Sequelize model db model create. Yeah, yes. That's the migration file.
Yeah,
Sequelize. Got it. So that's how you would scaffold it all at once.
Yes.
Excellent. That's what you would do. Thank you for that. Could you post that in the Gitter? In the Gitter, gitter.im/interviewweekly. I think that'll be super helpful. So now what I'll do is I'll make my model, right? In my model, I have an index.js file, but all this is doing is basically syncing up all the model files that are in this folder. So what I'll do is I'll go here. I'll look at the models that I'll copy this file. I'll save this as band.js. And instead of post, I'll name it bands. And there is something that I need to do here. Turn band. And there's something I need to do here. I need to freeze the table name. Otherwise, it'll assume that the table name is band, capital band. So I have to go, I remember we did that over here. Wait a minute, no, I remember I had that in my questions. Right here, so freeze, there we go. Right here, so I'm gonna copy this over. Oh wait, that's the wrong file name. Over here, inside of my band.js file. So freeze table name. So now it's going to definitely use bands. And now what I need to do is I need to throw in my name column. And Christian, you said that the ID will automatically be there?
Yep, unless you want to make it something different than what it always is.
Excellent. So then it's going to automatically recognize the ID. And I'm going to save this. And now let me just run my application to see if there are any errors. It already restarted, no errors. I will just hit it in the browser, just make sure everything works. It still works, excellent. And now let's go to /new. All right, that looks like it works. Let's do Green Day, and that works still. So all the routes work. And now inside my server.js file, I need to require this band.js model. So what I'll do over here is I'll do var band capital, because that's the convention. I'll do require. I'll do band.js over here. But I have to, I'm inside my server.js file, and I need to go into my models folder, right? So I'll do ./models/band.js right here, and I have access to my band model. So what I'll do is I'll create the band. I'll create the band here instead of just sending it back. So what I'll do here is I'll do band.create. and I forget the syntax. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go to the API route and go down. Copy this over. And then it's banned right here. And it's not rec dot, it's not author, it's name. And that's all I need. And over here, what I'll do is I'll do rec.body and it's name. And the reason why it's name is because inside the new handlebars file, wait, it's not name, it's banned. It's banned because the name attribute is banned right here. So I'll do banned. And let's try this right here. So let me go back to the browser. I will refresh this page. And let's put in a band. We'll put in, Lori, what's your favorite band?
Collective Soul.
Collective Soul, that's a good band. I actually have them on my favorites playlist. Favorite song now. So band.create is not a function. So let's see what the error says inside of my server. It says band.create is not a function on line 40 of server.js, on line 40 right here. And band, I am doing this right here. So what I will do is let me console log what band is when my page loads and see what happens. Band, models, band.js. Let me run this. So when I go to localhost 3000, and let's take a look at my server.js file. Right here. Gives me a function, so I know it's not undefined. It gives me something. If I go into my band.js file, module.exports equals function Sequelize. Interesting. So let me take a look at.
Did you sync your model?
I did not sync my model. So I would do band.sync right here. Let's try that. And we'll do collective soul again. Band.create is not a function. Let me go back to the way I did it with.
Yeah, if you go back to your server file, you're probably gonna want to sync it there. So. Oh,
let's see. I'm not requiring Sequelize in my model, and I'm not running sync on it. I'm gonna just do it like this. Okay, let's take a look over here. Sequelize.define. All right, so do I have a config? Config over here. And over here, this is expecting a connection. Oh, mine's config. .json. Interesting. So it looks like it didn't make a connection.js file for me. So we'll just do that over here. And let me go back to bands.js. Save this. Look inside here. Bands.js on line 7. string. Let's restart this. We get data types is not defined right here on this line. So let me take a look at what I did wrong.
It's because it's using, if you're doing, okay, so the old way that we did it in the first file only works for really like one model, but this way using the CLI works for multiple models. So to fix it from here, you change data types to Sequelize all capital, because it's referencing like a different Sequelize variable now that has like a different word for their model types, I guess, or their data types rather.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll get rid of that error.
Cool.
Except it's not all, it's just Sequelize with the capital S. The rest is not capital.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I'm using this Sequelize variable right
Yep.
here. Awesome. Let's try that. And now we have an access denied for localhost root user. Using password, yes. Let me go back to my connection file. Password is, I believe I have no password. Try that again. Okay, cool. Looks like it does work. Now let's go back over here. New. Collective soul. Submit. And now it says unknown column created at in field list. And let's take a look at where I'm using created at.
You might just want to drop your tables, because I think when it did it before, it synced it and it made the created at column, and now our model doesn't have it.
So describe bands, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll set timestamps to false, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'll do in my model. I'll set timestamps to false. So let me go over here, and I believe we did this inside of our thing right here. So timestamps is false inside the secondary object, and I will add this in right here. Let's try this again. Okay. And there we go. And looks like it worked. It ran this insert. Let's go to MySQL. Select star from bands, and we have collective soul. Awesome. All right. Okay, now I'm going to grab all the elements, all the bands, and throw them into my main page, right? So I'll throw them into my main page. And so this is what I'll do. I will do, let's go to our main page right here. Right now we're just basically sending back these bands right here to our main page. But instead what we can do is we can grab all of them from Sequelize using a select star from table or a find all, and then send them back over to our index file right here. So if we look over here for a find all, let's grab this. Band.find all, res dots, and instead of res.json results, I'll do res.render. Index, and over here, instead of spliced bands, I'm going to just send back the results right here. The results right here. And now, actually, it should just work. Let's go over here to the browser, and let's go to the main page. And it does kind of work. It says our favorite band is object Sequelize instance bands. So let me take a look at what results looks like. When we load this page. So I'm basically just console logging it out. So let's try that. And let's look inside my server.js file. Right here. And looks like we get back this big thing, results, and it's this array. And the first thing inside is this object, data values, and that's where our objects are. So we're gonna grab it out of this thing right here. So let's try that right now. So I'll do 0 dot data values. Let's try that. And we get back 1.
Just data values.
Just data values.
Yeah, it's an array like object, not an array.
Got it. Let's run that. Just data values, and that did not work. So let's try results.data values. Run this. Go in terminal. Looks like nothing came out. It came up undefined. So
that's weird.
Yeah, let's try this. Results 0 and run that. Let's see what we get. Oh wait, I changed that. I didn't change the other one. So let's change this. Refresh. Take a look at server. Data values. Oh, data values is just pointing to one object. Interesting. Well, we'll just do this for now. I'll put this into a bracket. I'm not sure why it's like this, but let's save it. Let's insert another band and we'll see what happens. So I'll refresh this. Object, object. And it's because if I open up my index file, right? If I open up my index file, now where are we? In my views. That was index.js. Right here, if I open up this, it's this dot band. This dot ID. And if I run this in the browser, 1:band, and that does not work. So let me take a look at the terminal again. It was name. And let me change this to name. And go back over here, refresh, and collective soul. And there we go. We got collective soul onto the page. All right, so any questions on what I just did right there? None. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna insert another band in. And let's go back to the main page. And we don't see it here, so let's take a look at what results gives us. So let me console log that out. Server.js. We'll just do results. Looks like I took that part out. I'll do console. Sorts and refresh this. Run this in the terminal. And we see this right here. We don't see the new thing. We have it in our table in bands. And then over here, it's inside, you see data values. I'll just do dot data values, Christian. See what happens this time. undefined. So let's do find all in the Sequelize documentation and see what it gives me. And that's not super helpful. So I'll do results 0 this time. Yeah, we won't do, I'll do results. I'll do res.send results. And let's just see what happens. And if I go to localhost 3000, and they came back. Okay. So I'll just send results over. Interesting. And that worked. All right. I don't know what happened there before, but so now we have our bands coming back. So what we can do is when we insert into the database, we could do res.redirect, right? We could do res.redirect to /, so that sends us back to the main page. And if I update my layout file over here, at the very top, I could do insert a new band. Let's go back over here, refresh this. I can insert a new band in, and let's get rid of index.handlebars. So I don't know where index.handlebars is coming from. Oh, it's down here. Save this. Let's go run it. Cool. So I can insert a new band. And let's put a new band in. We'll put in Ryan's house. And boom, we have Ryan's house. Insert another band. We'll put in Garon's basement. Awesome. So that was me live coding. I hope you enjoyed me struggling. Any questions on what we just did?
I think there's like way too many questions popping up, but it's it's Sequelize, and let's just look at the docs more. Still more confused about like the association methods. But I guess you're gonna send this up, right? Because it's like a different method or a way that, from what I looked at, I guess I can sort of understand the MVC model. It's that I want to understand how this worked.
Yeah, so it seems like there's a lot of questions. So do you feel clear about what we just went over? And is mainly your question like, I want to go over associations more?
Yeah, I guess the migration folder, that new part, I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, I mean,
That one confused me only just slightly.
okay, sure. So the migration. So what we did here was we generated a migration file, and we're saying it's going to create a table, and on when it's ran, if it's ran down, we're going to drop this table. And basically, the reason why we did this is because this file will. I forgot your name. I'm going to say Garan. Garan. Or Ryan. It's Ryan, right?
You can just say Garen.
Garen. All right, Garen. This file, it's going to be on version control, right?
Yeah. So this would be the controller folder.
Well, this is the migrations folder, and this migration file, will be available in version control, meaning like it's available on GitHub. So let's say you make it, you push it up to your GitHub, right, master branch, and then your partner on your group pulls down that master branch, does git pull origin master, and now your partner can get that table on his or her local machine by doing Sequelize space db:/migrate, pressing enter, and it'll look for any new migration files inside the migrations folder, and it will run them. And it'll make any changes to the database or create any new tables or drop any tables that you did. Garen, does that make sense?
So this is just a way for in case someone needed to pull my database and if they wanted to alter it, right?
Yeah, essentially. So think about this. Let's say you add in two columns here, right? Let's say you make a new migration. You should never update a previous migration file, but let's say you make a new migration file that adds in 2 columns into the bands table, right? So you add in age and label. Let's say another developer on your team, how would they get those changes if you weren't making migrations? What would you do?
I guess they would have to pull those changes.
Well, they wouldn't. They would pull nothing because if you weren't using migrations, literally when they pull from the code, their code will just break because the code is saying like expect these columns, right? And then your code, their database doesn't have those columns, so it's going to break. So they're going to say, hey, Garen, did you make any changes to the database? You're going to be like, yeah, I added these 2 columns in, right? So just like you're going to tell them, okay, well, just delete your database and recreate it, right? That's generally what most younger developers will do. They'll delete the entire database and recreate it. But the thing is, that's hard. That's not great because what if you have a ton of data inside of there? So with the migration file, they'll do git pull origin master, and then they'll run Sequelize db:/migrate, and it'll execute any migration files that are in this folder right here, migrations. And it'll create any new tables, modify any previous tables, and do all that for them based on version control. Otherwise, there's no way to keep track of the changes that you're making to your database. Does that make sense, Garen?
Yeah, a little bit more. I'll probably, is there I guess a link for maybe the docs for this, and then it'll probably clear up really quickly.
There are docs for this, but generally, like there's a lot to do with there's a lot around migrations. But just think about this: you want to version control your migrations. You want to version control. You want to keep track of the changes that you're making to your database, and share those changes that you're making to your database with other developers on your team.
Is that a question? So we changed the schema. We had to create a new migration file to match the change, right? Like suppose I add a new column or.
Yeah, if you were to do that, you would make a new migration file. So you could do Sequelize db. I forget the command off the top of my head, but it was over there in documentation. So if I go over here, Can everyone still see? Yeah, everyone can still see my screen.
So
I can do,
we said bug load, bug create, and we create the migration to match that bug create, right? So we have like a whole bunch of data going to data.
yeah, exactly. You're gonna do Sequelize migration create, and then you could add a column into your bands table, or change a column name if you needed to do that. And then because it's inside of a file, because that change is inside of a file, and you push that file up, and people are running Sequelize DB :migrate when they pull in changes, they'll get the database changes that you make on your database. Otherwise, they won't get them. Otherwise, they have to ask you, what changes did you make to the database? And they would have to go manually into their database and modify their database, right? Which doesn't sound like that bad when it's one table. Well, let's say there's like 20 or 30 tables. It becomes a pain. And let's say there's thousands of developers. Then it's basically impossible. Okay, well, what I'm going to do right now is go ahead.
Quick question. I missed the part with you setting up the config.json. What did you do for that?
Config.json?
Yeah. Is that the npm package, right?
That's a Sequelize CLI. So what I did was I did Sequelize init. Sequelize space init. Press enter. And that created my config for me. You can also,
I see.
Yeah. But I manually put in a connection.js file over here.
So you put the config.json inside your config folder.
Exactly. So what I'm doing right now is I'm pushing
Got you.
Sequelize example create. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, I have a question. So for some of the more advanced Sequelize things, like associations and many-to-many relationships and that kind of thing, if I'm having trouble finding it in the Sequelize documentation, is there a good place that has examples or tutorials that you would recommend?
No, that's a really good point. And let me give me 1 second.
Sure.
I'm not sharing my screen. Let me go into the Gitter. Can everyone go into the Gitter? What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to Slack out these videos on Sequelize to you guys, and they can help further bolster your knowledge. So let me go over here to my, so I know I have Sequelize somewhere. Here we go. I have a few good resources for you guys on Sequelize. So here's a great article on Sequelize, and I have another set of videos somewhere. Just trying to find them. Oh, here we go. Here's a YouTube playlist for you guys. Right, so I have those two sources for you, Lori. They come recommended from an instructor.
Thank you very much. That'll be helpful.
No problem. And guys, anytime you have a question, you could post inside of this Gitter, and it goes out to basically 120 people that have been through the bootcamp. So you can go on to gitter.im/interview-weekly, and you can post your question on there. And I just pushed up my repo, and I'm giving you guys, here's the code. Right here. So I just sent it out on Gitter. How do you go to Gitter? So you go to gitter.im/interview-weekly right here. Oh, thank you, Karen. Any other questions on this? Yeah, and I'm sorry we couldn't get to the associations part. I hope this was helpful to you guys, though.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, it was very helpful on my end.
I'm glad it was.
Same here. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely, Chase. Anything else?
Are y'all going to be doing stuff like this often?
Yeah. Well, talk to your student success manager. Keep on the lookout. We're going to expect a lot of things like this. It's called Trilogy TV. This is the first one, but we plan to do many, many more. And this is also recorded.
That's fine.
Yeah.
What is the URL link for the GitHub?
Yeah, I just pasted it into the Gitter. So go to Gitter. If you go to the chat right here, you can go to gitter.im/interview-weekly, and you'll see it over there. I put it over there and not in this chat because this chat will go away, right? As soon as this ends, chat's gone. With the recording will be shared with you from your student success manager, Sabrina. And remember to fill out that survey, right? That form. Let me share this with you again. Right, so this form right here, just please fill this out and put this code in right here. We're just trying to make these sessions run better every time. Right, and this is recorded and it will be shared with you. All right, guys, if there's nothing else, I'm sorry for keeping you a little bit later. I will catch you later.
All right, thanks a lot for the help there.
Absolutely. Have a good
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
No problem. Take care.
Make sure to sleep well after this.
Hey, make sure you kill that bug.
I don't know where it is now, so yeah. I'm a little scared. Take care, guys.
All right.